call is
This
now
is
being
Global
recorded.
Tel Link. You have a prepaid call from an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Real quick, just to answer, like, to little context to your question, like, as far as going to YA, right? Like looking back from where I stand today, like I seen YA as like a rite of passage. You know what I mean? Like I said, all my homeboys had gone to YA. Everybody was going to YA, and it was kind of like these are the dudes that, like I told you yesterday in the interview, like I finally felt like I belonged somewhere. I finally felt like, okay, this is my family. This is where I'm at. You know what I mean? Like, so as my homies were going, it kind of felt like, okay, well, that's where I'm supposed to be. You know what I mean? So like going there was not something that, I wasn't worried about going because in my mind, I'm like, well, everybody I know, anybody that matters to me is already there or already on their way, So, like looking back now, I kind of wore that going to YA like a badge of honor, And it's kind of weird looking back now, you know what I mean? But at that point in time, it's like, well, fuck it, let's go, That's where all the homies are at.
And when you landed at YA, two questions. How old were you, and at what facility did you end up at?
So when I got there, I was 17. I landed at it's called SRCC, which is a Southern Reception Center and Clinic. Yeah, and I was 17 when I got there. It's right there in Norwalk.
How long did you stay there for?
I stayed in SR, man. I don't know, probably 3-4 months. It wasn't long, you know what I mean? You do like a little like a I don't know, not an orientation, but it's a reception center, you know what I mean? So they do your medical, they do your school, they do all your like intake stuff, and they classify you. You see a counselor, and they pretty much,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
this is where you're going, and pretty much that's what happened. They send you they pick your institution where you're going, and at the time they picked for me to Preston.
And where's Preston located at?
Preston's up north in Ione, California. It's one of the oldest YAs in California. It's the castle. They call it the castle because it has a castle, like a little castle looking thing up on the hill right there, and it's in Ione, California.
But once you get settled in, do you have any idea of how long you're going to be staying there based on the activities that were going on at that time? I know you said was it that you got sentenced to, or you were committed for a year and a half? Was it 18 months?
Yeah, when I seen the actual counselor, the counselor, the counselor, they tell you, okay, you're a category. I was either a 4 or a 5. I think I might have been a 5, 4. I can't really remember, but they said they tell you, yeah, okay, look, you have this much confinement time. We can keep you here. I had till I was 21 was my jurisdiction. So I was 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I only had 4 years that they could keep me on my jurisdiction. So they basically said, like, if you mess up right here, we could keep you all the way till you're 21, but right now we're giving you 18 months. You just go up there, do your time, stay out of trouble, you know what I mean, and they give you that little spill or whatever, but the reality is they know better than we do that, what's ahead of us.
And how did that end up working out for you? What was the first issue you had there when once you got to Preston?
Well, as soon as I got to Preston, I happened to go up there with my homeboy Keto. He was from Malaro, where I used to be from, and he was right there, and so we went up there and with a couple of cats, and like within the first week of us getting there, we ended up getting off with some Northerners. They end up hitting my homeboy Keto with like a canned food or something like that. So we were outnumbered. We just kids, wilding out. And so off the top, within the first week of getting there, off the top, I'm already picking up another 6 months. And
That was
because I
fast.
was already close to, yeah, I was already close to becoming 18. That's how I didn't last long in Preston. They ended up sending me over to Chad because I ended up turning 18. So I only stayed in Preston for like 8 months, 9 months, because I ended up going to Tamarack. It's the lockup unit right there, and they send you to from you go to lockup for a little while, and then if you're 18, they'll send you to either YTS or Chad. Like if they can send you there, if you're a program failure. And so since I just got, I'd already turned 18 while I was there in Tamarack. They said, you know what, let's just send them to Chad.
And while you were there, did you experience any type of rehabilitation while you were there?
No, absolutely not. I mean, like I said, they had like I said, as soon as I got there, like I didn't even make it off orientation before I ended up going to lockup. But I know like they were talking about they had school and this and that. You know what I mean? Like But in Preston, I never seen. It was a madhouse. You know what I mean? Like I said, every day, youngsters were coming to lock up with us. Like every day, fools are coming to the back or to either Tamarack. They had two holes that had ironwood and they had Tamarack, and we used to just call it the rack or ironwood. And so now I never got a chance to experience any rehabilitative programs in Preston. I'm sure they had them there. How effective they were, I really can't say.
What percentage of people that were or juveniles or wards of the state that were there participated in all the shenanigans that were going on in there?
Oh, it was like 95%. At least 95%. Like in Preston, like the reality is like anybody that was programming. That's what I'm saying. I don't think they had anything in Preston because anybody that was programming in Preston was usually considered leva or like dudes that weren't that were just like back then seen as weenies. You know what I mean? Like if they were programming, it was because they were scared. They weren't gang members. They weren't like, and they So as far as being involved in the shenanigans, you had no option. You know what I mean? Like it's embarrassing to say, but they used to say, you either sucking dick or paying rent and YA. You know what I mean? Like those were your options. If you weren't a gang member and active and with the functions, you were either sucking dick or paying rent. You know what I mean? Like that's what fools used to say about like because it's like if you're not down to put in business, fools are gonna punk you. You know what I mean? And if you don't have money to pay rent, then there's always gonna be somebody that's gonna come along pulling some weird shit.
And did you ever see any cases where somebody wasn't a part of or wasn't affiliated with a gang, and they ended up joining a gang while there?
Oh yeah, that was constant. That was constant. Like there was I've seen dudes come there from one gang and leave from another gang. You know what I mean? Like that's how like it was like a cesspool, like a breeding ground for gang members. That's one thing why I did because like I said, people are scared. Like you go up in a place like that, you got to remember when you're on the streets and you're with your homeboys, as much as wild as the streets are, you still got a sense of peace. But when you show up in this institution, you got a bunch of crazy ass kids. Everybody's just like a ticking time bomb. And even if you're a gang member, you know what I mean? Like you show up in places like that. Imagine showing up there and not actually being a gang member and realizing that, you know what, man, I'm truly standing alone right here. So I seen a bunch of dudes join gangs, and I even seen dudes, like I said, go from one gang to another gang up in there.
And the dudes that went from one to another, was that looked down upon, or how were they viewed?
Oh yeah, of course. Like it didn't go unnoticed. Like a lot of times dudes would end up in a bunch of shit. Like the fools that did end up ranking out. Like I said, they would go up there. They didn't have a lot of the cats. The ones that I've seen rank out were like cats that didn't have strong ties to their neighborhood or didn't have strong ties to their gang. They just people that were more hanging around, backing up their barrio, and then they get to up there and realize that they weren't cut out for it, and they'll end up getting dropped when they get there, and then later on they'll start hanging out with dudes from another gang, and ultimately them fools will give them an opportunity to bring themselves up. You know what I mean? That's what they call it, like you bring yourself up. And so like if they're willing to put in work, like to fight and scrap and back up the other barrio, so like other fools would still like think bad about them and talk bad about them, but as long as they were able to put in work and stay with their homies, they kind of were half-ass protected. You know what I mean? But a lot of fools looked at it messed up.
And do you know what would happen to them when they were returned to the neighborhoods? Because I'm assuming they were still living in the same neighborhood um, that they originally cut their charges at.
Oh
How
yeah,
would their
yeah.
old
I mean,
homies, take that?
oh yeah. I mean, like I said, if it was a reputable neighborhood or it was something like that, you got to remember though, these are kids. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm sure if it was somebody that was known in their neighborhood and they went in there from one gang and came out from another gang, you absolutely they're gonna catch some flack on the streets. You know what I mean? That goes without question. I see, but I seen other dudes like I'll give you an example. Like there was a barrio out here in Indio. They were it came from L.A. It was Playboys. It came from L.A. and it was out here in Indio. And when they came out here, there was a few of them, and
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
a couple of the dudes from that were claiming that clique were claiming Southside Indio Playboys, even though there was no Indio Playboys. The dudes that brought that shit out there were actually from Playboys in L.A. and they kind of recruited some fools. But I seen a couple of them cats when I was in YA actually go up there claiming Playboys and come out actually claiming Northside Indio. You know what I mean? Like what the fuck, fool? I see you gave me like you fools were just from Playboys a year ago, 2 years ago, and now you guys are banging a whole. And the crazy thing is they hung out with my side of town. You know what I mean? Like it was a trip. Like they hung out with the South Side, but they for some weird ass reason they end up coming out of YA claiming Northside Indio. Like how did that happen? You know?
How much time did you end up spending in YA, or how much extra time did you end up
I
catching from the original 18 months on top of that?
Well, I ended up maxing out in 2021. I mean, yeah, 2021. In 2001, when I turned 21, Spencer.
So you ended up doing like 4 or 5 years in YA as opposed to the 18 months that you were originally
Yeah,
sentenced to?
almost four.
And once you maxed out, I'm assuming you weren't on parole. You came home and that was it, right? You were an adult
Yeah, I came home
officially.
and that was it. Right. They couldn't do nothing. They couldn't do nothing. Like you don't have no. You're not on parole. You're not. You don't have no confinement time or nothing, so they can't violate you or anything like that.
So you came home and pretty much you had a clean slate. You didn't have a tell. And did you have a support system when you came home? Did you have any family backing?
No, I mean I ended up going back to my mom's house, to my grandma's house. You know what I mean? And basically, it was kind of back to the same old thing. Sleeping on my grandma's couch. I got out and I started working a little bit. But of course, the homies started coming around like, "What's up? Who where you been?" Like, like I spent the first like month or two like trying to half-ass do the right thing right there just to be with my head fucked because I had missed her for a while. And but I had a little girl before I went to YA. So when I came out, I had my little girl right there. So it was kind of like I was trying to half-ass spend some time with her and her mom, and like. But of course, the streets come calling. It wasn't. So to answer your question, no, I didn't have I didn't have no resources. You know what I mean? I just basically went back to I had a spot on my mom's couch. It wasn't it's not like we were doing the greatest or anything like that. But again, I'm 21 years old. I'm not a little boy either.
So how long were you out
You have 60 seconds remaining.
before you caught your I'm assuming it was the case that you're currently incarcerated for, right?
Right, right. So I was out there. I got out in let's see. I think it was. I was out there I think for like 4 months because I maxed out like a few months before my 21st birthday because my confinement time ran out and I still had jurisdiction time, but they couldn't do nothing because I didn't have no more actual confinement time because I was maxed out. So I think it was like June maybe. I'd have to check. I think it was like May or June. I ended up maxing out, and I got busted. I believe in October. On October, I think October 9th or something like that of this case for this case. But they came and got me. This case, like I say, it was a cold case. It was a case it was a murder that I had committed before I ever went to.